Welcome to the School Owner Talk podcast, the longest-running martial arts school owner podcast in our industry. Join Duane Brumitt and Allie Alberigo as they share expert insights, proven strategies, and the keys to growing your martial arts business. Let's take your school to the next level. And now here's our hosts, Duane and Allie.
Hey, welcome back to School Owner Talk, the podcast for martial arts school owners who want a real conversation, real strategies, and real results.
Today we're going to dive into a topic that makes a lot of schools, I think, uncomfortable sometimes, and it's called sales.
I know, but here's the truth. We've said it before, and we always talk about this. The truth is, if you want to grow your school, impact more students, more families, build a thriving business. If you want to take the word business out of it and build a thriving school, you have to learn how to sell confidently and ethically.
And we're going to be talking about how to present your programs, close new students, and build powerful upgrades, a powerful upgrade culture within your school.
Yeah, so let's break down what it really looks like to enroll with integrity first, right? That's important. And also get your systems in place. So selling, again, the word selling sometimes is negative for people, but putting people in programs or putting them in your school, it doesn't feel slimy and it feels natural. I'll just say one thing. When I taught for the first time in England, they asked me, they said, what is your scheme? Right? And I said, hey, what do you mean by that? I got all scheme, because in the US, when we say scheme, you're scheming, you're doing something underhandedly, illegally, no ethics in it or morality, right? But the scheme to them basically just means their plan, your marketing plan. So, you want to make sure you don't feel you personally slimy, and it feels natural for you as well.
Yeah. And it's, has all, and it's funny because it has all to do with what the definition of the word is that you guys are talking about. So,
Right.
I think in this first part, we should probably talk about the mindset around selling first. Are you good with that?
Absolutely. I like it because I think we have to be clear on what we talk about.
So, some martial arts school owners struggle with selling because of the type of mindset. And I know I had that at one point where I really thought to myself, I'm teaching a good quality, set of martial arts skills and all those type of things, but I didn't have the confidence to charge what I felt like the program maybe, and I used the word maybe at the time, maybe could have been worth. And it took a long time, I think, for me to come to the conclusion that what I was doing was way more than the kicking and punching part. And when I focused on that, I realized, at least for what I was doing, because I'm more of a kids-based martial arts program, those were the qualities that parents were looking for out of a martial arts program for their child, and therefore they were willing to pay a good amount of money to get those type of qualities for their child. And I remember, because of Stephen Oliver, I was introduced to Dan Kennedy. And after reading some of Dan Kennedy's material and then even buying some of his courses, it was funny because he said, all you have to do is just have the cojones to say, yes, Mrs. Jones, the price of the program is X, Y, and Z. And I can remember, moving from like $125 a month to $169 a month and having the guts to just say, yes, the program is, $169 a month. But I had to first myself had that mindset that it really was worth it. And I was amazed that I think it was like 3 or 4 in a row. As soon as I changed the price, they signed up. And I'm thinking, man, I should have done that a long time ago.
Yeah, I know, right, dude? I do that with my coaching clients all the time, and they kind of push back. And then I say, do me a favor, just try the next 5. Out of the next 5 signups, tell me who does it and who doesn't do it. And almost inevitably, every time they've come back and said, they did it. Like, And one of my clients is funny. He goes, I feel dirty, like I just did something wrong. I go, no, you just did something right because that's what you're worth, right? So, but here's the one thing. I think selling to a school owner, and look, when I started, I I was under the impression that I needed to run my martial arts school differently than I was running my current business, which is a landscape construction design company. Like I knew what selling was. I'd have to go in and sell $20,000, $30,000 projects to redo someone's entire lawn. I knew the puppy dog clothes and the Ben Franklin clothes and how to do it and how to push the paper across the table. Like I was doing that with my landscaping. But when I finally started doing martial arts full time or semi full time at the time, I ran two businesses simultaneously. I was like, you know what? I can't do that. That's not the way martial arts are. Like I even felt that the taboo of like trying to make money at martial arts was wrong because I watched my teachers over the years run very unsuccessful schools, never talk about money. I mean, always broke and didn't have the money to pay the light bill or the electric bill. And they never really, still to this day, I feel terrible because they were amazing martial artists and never ever, now they're still struggling 30 years later. So, so the whole idea is take the word selling out of your mind and just put placing, right? You're not selling because selling kind of sounds dirty, right? So, to some people, right? That stigma. Just say placing people in your program, putting people in your program. And that's a much, because now you're doing something good for the person. You're not selling them. You hear the difference just in those two words, placing or putting them in your program, selling them into your program. For some, that word selling just seems bad.
Yeah, and I would even say the word, like reframing sales as service.
Yeah,
I'm servicing my client or I'm
right,
servicing this person on the trial. And,
right,
like even some of the language that you use, because I'll even say like, and if you and if you know that this is the right program for you, we'll get, Johnny involved in that on next Tuesday when we meet. Like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
just some of those small little, I want to get these small little yeses, and we can talk about that in just a little bit. But it really is just kind of reframing the selling or the sales to that you're providing a service.
right,
You're looking to see, if they are the right type of person or persons that you want to service in the first place,
right,
because not everybody is. And then when you're selling really is leading them, not convincing them, but leading them to make a decision.
right,
To me, that's what selling is. And if the decision is no, that's okay.
right, right. Well, you know what though, too? I mean, if you don't, and again, the word selling is going to come in, but if you don't service or place people in your program or sell them into your program, who's going to do it? Like if you're not doing it, or even if you have a program manager and they're afraid of selling, we have to be careful that we don't waste, because now we're everyone want when people come to me and they're clients wanting to build their school, the first thing they say is I want to get more students. Well, how do we do that? First, we have to think about a marketing plan and marketing, right? And then, but if you have all the marketing and it's working, but you're getting them into your school and you're not able to properly sign them up, service them, or sell them, then you're wasting your money and you're wasting your time. So you have to get good at sales. I did maybe about a year and a half ago, I did the, what the heck? I can't think of his name right now. Oh, Grant Cardone, his sales mastery course. It was amazing, but it was everything I've ever known, but that I forgot. Things that I stopped doing because my philosophy changed a little, or because I got back to the fact where I started feeling guilty about asking for a sign up, or like maybe people will think I'm all about the money, or they think that all I care about is money. Like my negativity started to resurface. And I forgot that without me getting good at selling, putting people in my program, I cannot do what I love to do, and that's to teach the martial arts. So you
Yeah,
have to overcome that.
and I would say that you're along with the lines that you're leading them to making a decision. You really are discovering what it is that they want out of a martial arts program, presenting that which they want, that you can provide, and
Hmm.
then allowing them to see a positive future inside of that based upon what they said they wanted and the picture that you painted with what they wanted. If you can get them to see that positive future, then it really is leading them to a decision from there. Again,
Right.
yes, I want to, or no, I don't. But at least, and we've had people go, yes, I see that this is going to be beneficial for my child, but we literally cannot afford it.
Right.
And then I just say, I totally understand. When and if a time comes that you want him in the program and you can't afford it, just let us know. We already see that he would be not only that it would benefit him, and you've seen that too, but we know that he would be a great part of our school. So
Yeah.
even if you have to back off and they're not going to do it, you still leave the door open. I just had and I know it's money. I had a kid who started with me. He's a 3 and 4 year old. Started the trial on last Thursday. They were supposed to come back yesterday on Tuesday. Didn't show up. Sent them a text message last night saying, "Hey, we didn't see so and so in class. Hope everything's okay. Please let us know what's going on. Otherwise, we can see you. We'll add another day to his trial and we'll see you on Thursday." Well, they messaged this morning. Nice, beautiful message. Love your program. I know it was only one class, but we definitely can see that this would help out so and so and such and such. And then from there, they said, but it's summertime. We want him to be able to have some freedom, and all the stuff that they said
Yeah.
was, yeah, they saw the price video. Like, you know what I'm saying? I know
Yeah.
what it was. And I wrote him a beautiful thing back because they said they want to reach back out in the fall when he's, you know, not in the summer. And I said, great, not a problem. We'll reach back. I don't know if they'll ever join, but they've had a positive experience from all angles. And
Yeah.
now the thing that they don't know is my price is going up. So when
Yeah.
they come back, it is going to be a different price than what they
Yeah.
just saw. But that's okay.
Right. Well, listen, I often think it's about getting people to understand priority. So, for example, they're saying to themselves like, "Oh, it's too expensive." People would say, "Oh, it's just too expensive." And this is like a sales strategy. I would say, compared to what? Well, we do baseball, and baseball is only $40 for the season, right? It's more of, a town type thing. I go, yeah, but do you get what we give in baseball? And the answer is no, like, or soccer or football, right? I look at it like my parents, I had a Mother's Day training, back the day before Mother's Day. And I said to the parents, I said, listen, first I want to say two things. I want to apologize because I'm always sending you a ton of text messages. And then the parents kind of was like, jokingly, "Oh yeah, we know," like that kind of thing. And I said, "But let me ask you this." I said, what other program that your children do the coaches, teachers, slash whoever, organizers, put this much time and effort to make sure you're getting your bang for your buck and the most out of their program? And they said, "Yeah, that's kind of true." I said, "All I ask from you guys is to respond to me. If you respond when I ask you a question, then I don't have to send you three more messages asking you to respond." And it was interesting. Like right after that, I started sending out messages, and right away people said, all they had to do is say, "Thank you. I got it. I understand. I can't go." I go, rather than ignoring me, I'm trying to do this for you. Like, for instance, I have a Father's Day training coming up the day before Father's Day, and I'm literally giving away free t-shirts to every father that comes. And I even said if they can't make it, which a lot of parents can because they work on a Saturday maybe, I said, just say you want the t-shirt and you can't come, and I'm going to pay out of my pocket to get this t-shirt and give it to the kid to give to you as a present, and you'll have a ninja dad. And the shirts are very cool. I can't wait to get one for myself. But we have to educate people, and that is sales, right? Education, putting them in the right position, guiding them down that pathway. That's all about selling.
Yeah. So let's talk about the enrollment process, and
Yeah.
what are some things that you say during the enrollment process, during the intro, those type of things. Do you want to start with that, or do you want me to go?
Why don't you start? Because I know we have a little bit different process, you and I.
Yeah. So one of the things that we definitely do is, we ask them, what is it? you tell us a little bit about Johnny, what it is that they're looking for out of a martial arts program. Because what we want to do is obviously find out if it is something that we can even help them with.
Right.
And if they say confidence, if they say discipline, if they say respect or whatever it is, we do ask follow-up questions. So can you give me an example of what you mean by
Right.
you want Johnny to have more discipline?
Hmm.
Oh, well, we just want him to follow through with things. And, when we say do this, do it. Okay, so we're talking about the discipline to do things the first time that they're asked. Not
Right.
that he's unruly, but the discipline. So it's nice to do that clarifying question so that we really know what they're talking about.
Right.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
so it totally does. And so that to me, I would explain to a parent, I would say, that's not discipline. That's called self-discipline, right? So you want us to educate or teach your child to have self-discipline, to know when to clean his room without being told, or to do it on the first time you ask, right? So now right away in my conversation, I'm kind of selling them on my program, right? Because I'm explaining what we do versus what they're thinking we should do.
Totally. Yeah. Another thing that we implement as well is let's just, I guess use the focus one. Is that, yeah, I
Right.
want my child to be more focused because they're a little scatterbrained or whatever. What you also can do is say, Mrs. Jones, take a look out at that karate floor right now. Do you see focus happening
Right.
anywhere on that floor? And she goes, yeah, I see that kid being well, what is it about that kid that you see? And they say, well, I see them paying attention. They're locking eyes with the instructor, whatever it is. Okay,
Right.
can you give me any other example? Do you see focus happening out on the floor anywhere else? And they're
Mm.
like, oh yeah, I see so and such and such. You do that 2 or 3 times, right? You don't have to keep going. And you say, Mrs. Jones, I just want you to know that not every kid comes in with focus like that. But over time, every child leaves with the focus like that. So
Yeah.
is that what you'd like for your child? Yes. Okay, great. So that's another, enrollment type process.
If I could add one thing onto that you might want to try, is I would say, how willing are you to help your child get that focus through our program? For example, like, yeah, I see it. And they think that, okay, bring them to the class and all this is going to manifest, but will you work with them at home? Will you reinforce what we do? Because a lot of times, I'm sure you agree, is that we teach, but they're not getting reinforcement at home. So they're with us. Let's just say they do 2 days a week for an hour. That's only 2 hours a week that they're with us. How's that going to totally impact and change their lives with just 2 hours? No at-home practice. No, that's the reason why we supposedly give homework in our school, so that we reinforce the lesson in class at home. However, it's not being utilized correctly, and I think that we need to do better. So I would ask them and say, well, what are you willing to do? Would you be willing to do this at home if we taught you how to do it? Like that kind of thing. Oh yeah, I would love to work with you guys. That's great. Now their buy-in starts and establishes.
Yeah, and I think we just need to make sure that they understand that the what they are looking for on the out of the program, they're actually able to see out on the floor.
Right.
And then you can start to paint that picture for their child's future based upon the evidence that they've already seen in other kids that are out on that floor.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Totally does. I love it. I think that that's a great way. Like the connection that we are explaining to them, the education of that parent on what our process is to get them the results that they're looking for, will tie them to the program, right? To get them to believe in what we do.
Absolutely. So, and look, you got to build the connection before you start leading them into the process of making a decision. And
Right.
really how you present your program with them, you got to do it with clarity and you
Hmm.
have to do it with confidence
Yeah.
because they are going to feel that confidence or lack thereof if you do not have it. So
Yeah.
even if it is that you are faking it until you make it, I again remember uh, Dan Kennedy talking about this, where he said, just look in the mirror
Right.
and basically say, yes, Mrs. Jones, the price of the program is $169 a month.
Right.
And then, say it again. Yes, Mrs. Jones, the price of the program is 169. Like, and I did that. I literally did that before I went in and did the other three or five,
Yeah.
whatever it was that and I was like, holy cow, I should have done this a long time ago. It
Yeah,
was the
we always
confidence.
regret it.
Yeah, it was the confidence that I had,
Yeah.
going into that. And I wasn't confident per se, but I had done the rehearsing like it was a stage performance. And then when I stepped out on the stage, I was an actor saying, yes, Mrs. Jones, the price of the program is 169 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just being a confident actor, even
Right.
though, the real Duane Brumitt was not confident about it. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. It's definitely you had to train your mind to believe in who you were so that you could sell the program with confidence, but you were faking it. You were an actor on stage playing a neurosurgeon, but you really had no education of medical, history whatsoever, right? Never took it in college, but you had to, like, I always look at that stuff, and I love watching Friends with my wife. We watch Joey, Tribbiani from Friends, and he's always like, he's an actor, but he's really, his character on the show is he's not the smartest or brightest person, yet he's a good actor, and he's Dr. Drake Rumore, right? Like, and he's always saying these words that he has no clue what they mean, but he's saying them because it's on the script for him to say. So, like for my school too, I always say that we have to have our school also sell for us, right? So this is one thing. And by the way, years ago, you either had a nice school or you had a crappy school. I mean, a lot of schools were dirty and messy and sloppy and unorganized, chaos everywhere, and 1,000 crooked pictures and so on. But now most majority of schools I look at these days are beautiful, right? There, people have put that time and effort. I guess enough bar rescue TV shows and Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay have brought people to understand that the visual is important, right? So we have to make sure that we take them through a little tour of our school, but it's not just like, this is where you sit, this is the mat where they train, this is the restrooms, this is where they put their shoes. There should be a little story tied to everything that you tell them, so that you're literally pointing out the obvious. This is our lobby. This is where all the parents get to sit and get to know each other. Some people are now going out for walks in my area together as a group while they drop their kids off, and they watch on Zoom while they're doing their walk in the neighborhood. Like, you point that out. Like, everyone becomes friends. Kids start to have play dates. And outside of my school, we have a playground you could play on after class or before class. And then this is our mat and our training area. These are Swain and tatami mats. They're 3 inches of pure safety that are used in the Olympics. Like, you have to point out things that they would just look at it and say, oh, it's a mat. But now we point out the safety element, right, of why we do it. This is why my dojo is set up this way, because when I trained in Japan, which, by the way, I was training with one of two ninja masters in the entire, get what I'm coming from? And I trained with one of two ninja masters in the entire world in Japan. This is what my dojo looked like. So I'm selling the school so that people feel like, wow, this is very cool. Like, they get all the energy and effort you put into it.
Yep. Yeah. So, that enrollment process has a lot to do with the education, the communication, and making sure that you paint that beautiful future really for their
Yeah,
child.
I
Now,
love it.
I don't know about you, but how you present your program, the options that they have to choose from, I think that's important.
Right.
For us, so our school is called TriStar Martial Arts Academy. Tri obviously means three, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done is we have three options that they can get started. We're doing everything in threes. And of course, that wasn't what it was years ago, but obviously now, I know a little bit more. We're making
Yeah.
a lot more things synonymous, but so they have three options to choose from in order to get started. So they have a flex pay, if you will, where they can cancel. They just give us 1 week notice to cancel. And then we have a 6 month, and then we also have a 12 month. Super easy.
Right.
And we run our payment structure is weekly, so you pay us every week, and that's just how it's broken down. So if it's a flex pay, it's $60 a week. If it is a 6 month commitment, no cancellation, then it's $50 a week. And if they lock in for the year with no cancellation, then it is 45 a week.
Okay.
And there's their option. So I make it super simple. Now, on the flip end of that is, let's just say they want to do the 6 month option, and they go, yeah, you know what? Yep, we want to do the 6 month. It's $50 a week. By the way, just so you know, we do have some parents that would like to save a little bit more money and just prepay it. So if that's what you'd like to do, we can save 10% right off the top if you just want to prepay it. So this is what it would be. So there would not be any $50 weekly payments. It would be this. And
Right.
then of course we do the same thing with the year paid in full for the year, but that one's
Okay. Okay.
20% off if they want to pay the year in full. But that's it. It's super simple. Not a lot of hoops to jump through, that type of thing.
Do you have a price sheet that they can sit and look at while you're presenting this stuff, or do you just talk to them about it and tell them what it is?
Well, we present it in a video. They get it on the third day. So if you started on a Tuesday, you got video number one. Then Wednesday or the next day you get, Wednesday you would get a video number two, and then by Thursday you'd get a video number three. And so they get a series, three video series about the program. First one is just real super simple about the app, how to download it, that type of thing. Second one is, about our program, the three area of emphases for our program, again, in threes, and then the last one is the price and the structure, the framework of that, and the three options that they get to choose from. Does that
That's
make
awesome.
sense?
Yeah, it totally does. If we're doing a 2 week membership, our ultimate goal is to get that parent to sit with us on the first day, and then we explain our programs, and we have a sales sheet, and we hand them a copy, and we have a copy, and we point at it while they look at it, and it's, we have a 3 month program which we just revitalized. For a while I did away with it, but I'm noticing that people are like, oh, we can't commit. And I realize they can't commit after 2 weeks to something for a year sometimes. Some people are just not willing to do that. So I give them a 3 month option, and then they can only do that once, and they renew into a yearly agreement. And then we have yearly agreements, and we have a basic program and what we call our Black Belt Club program. So we have those three. And then we have other add-on memberships like our team leadership, character development, and so on, and so instructor training, that kind of thing. But yeah, so we professionally have a sheet. It shows them exactly, we call it a value stack of what they're getting. No, they don't pay for testing. They don't pay for uniforms. They don't pay for, all of this stuff. We don't have a registration fee, and it's X amount of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And what that does is that really avoids the decision fatigue.
Right.
It's going to be simple for parents, and they don't really, and they don't. There's no fatigue in the decision. And for us, like the flex pay, that allows them to dip their toes, and we let them know, if at any time you want to switch to a 6 month or even a 12 month, you most certainly can do that. In
Right.
your first year, to save money. That's not a problem, and we would be happy to do that.
How many?
And
Good. I'm sorry. Go.
so I want them to know that they're not locked into having to be at the $60 mark. So if their child is liking it after 3 or 4 weeks, or even a month or 2 months, they can move to a 6 month, or let's just say it's been 2 months. They can't do the 12 month. They would have to. It would be a 10 month now, because they've already done 2 months. So we would do a 10 month, but we would go ahead and reduce it to the $45 as opposed to the $60 a week. And the reason why, and we're going to get to this in our upgrade stuff, because we basically only have three programs in our school. You have your basic program, which is a 1 year program, but from there, in order to move forward, you got to get into our black belt leadership program, which takes you to first degree black belt. And then at some point, you have a decision to make. If you want to go to second degree, then you're going to get into our storm team program, which takes you all the way to second degree. So there are different levels.
Yeah.
Again, we're doing everything in threes, but they're going to have to make a decision at some point to get into the black belt leadership, and then that's a commitment to go to black belt, and that's a
Nice.
3 year program in and of itself.
So what I was going to ask you is, how many people do you have in your 1 month, the higher priced program, because they're paying extra to have the flexibility of not having a commitment, in case they're that fly by night type mentality where we're in 1 month, we're out the next, or we'll come back in 2 months, and most of them don't, but maybe they do. But how many people do you think stay in that program just for the option of flexibility.
Just a few.
Yep.
And I think mainly because we put it at a higher dollar amount. I mean, it's $10 more than the 6 month one.
Right.
And we've had
So
people that did the 6 month one, and then 3 months into it, they go, "Yeah, we don't want to do it anymore." We're like, "Well, you still have 3 months," and then they cancel their card, you
yeah.
know. And there's nothing we can do about that. I'm not going to take them to collections, and but they're not a person of their word either. So
Yeah, however, that's a whole nother topic. I've been back and forth throughout my 35 years. Like, do I sue them? Do I let them go? Do I ignore it and not put the energy in? Or do I send them to a collection company and let them do the collecting for me?
but I won't let them come back.
Yeah, I know, but isn't it just amazing at how many it's kind of, in my opinion, very disgusting. And where people, like, for example, I have a family just recently that they had two kids, and the one daughter didn't want to come anymore. So I said, let's put them on hold and we'll see. Maybe we could convince her. And they never really put any effort into trying to convince her. They just said okay to me so that they could buy time. And then just recently they said to me, we'd like to cancel so-and-so's agreement. So I said, okay, I'll do that for you, but I don't normally cancel agreements. And they said, oh, we'd also like to cancel the other child, the boy's agreement as well. I said, ma'am, I can't just cancel everything. You're in a contract. So I sent them the first clause of my contract. Literally the first line says, this membership is non-cancelable. You can't, and it spells it out in layman's term. You can't cancel because your kid is bored, or your schedule changes, or you're too busy and you don't feel like coming during the summer. Like, it just spells that out. It says you're in the agreement for the duration of the time and you have to pay whether you come or not. Right. And that's the first clause. They don't have to sign the contract. They read that. And it's also highlighted in yellow, and it's in 24-point font versus the rest of the contract, which is in like 14. Right. So like at that point, they know. And I pointed out to them, yet when it comes time. So I knew from the minute I said no to these people, they loved me until no longer. I became the bad guy about asking for money and only caring about money, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, live up to your commitment. That's important these days, is to live up, not as a parent, live up to your commitment. Tell your kids that they have to go, and don't sign back up again. I get that, but you already knew what you were signing up for and the commitment that it took. So that's why colleges charge full tuition up front. They don't let you pay as you go. You want to be in the college, you pay up front, unless you get a loan, but then you owe the loan company, but the college gets the money.
Right.
They're not going to play around with, hey, my credit card bounced, I didn't go through, I don't feel like paying, my kid's not going anymore. They're like, nah, you signed up, you're paying. That's it. Why are they okay to do that and we're not? Like, why as martial arts school owners do we feel bad about holding them to a higher standard of ethics and morality? I don't understand. I go back and forth too. Like, do I want to waste the time and energy and be upset? Or or do I just let it go? Like, but I now went back to getting a collection company and sending people to collection.
Yeah. I'm not really ready to do that, but with regards to the enrollment process, offer choices but make them simple. Avoid the decision fatigue we talked about. You talked about using visuals with regards to price sheets, maybe even testimonials inside of the presentations. Make it simple for parents.
Yes.
We kind of alluded to the fact that we've got to build in an upgrade culture into your program. So we have our basic program, which is a 1-year program, but from there we have a 3-year program that takes them to their black belt, and then like I said, we have our storm team program. And so when you make that the mandatory, it becomes easy that it's the culture, because now either you decide to get into leadership and go to your black belt. Or you're done and you're not going to go any further than, your 12-month program.
Right. Well, I did a seminar with Spark University, right? And then Chung Park, Master Park, GMP, as they call him, Grandmaster Park. He had a seminar on paths to upgrades. And even though a lot of us probably have heard this before, I loved a lot of the things that he said. He said, one thing you need to do to evaluate your program, you have to say, how would I rate my program on a scale of 1 to 10? The upgrade program, like, is it a 10? Like, or is it just like a 3? Because people won't take that leap to upgrade unless your program is just a stellar program, right? And he also said, what makes the upgrade program special in order to build the culture. In order to have an upgrade program, you got to build the culture around the specialty of what that program does. Black Belt Club, they're like the rock stars of your school, right? Leadership team, they're the instructors of your school, et cetera, right? And he also said, how do you create the belief in your program? Those three impelling questions were pretty wild. And he said, we're a passion-driven industry. We are passionate about what we do and what we teach. I think that was really something that, kind of hit home for me. So I think that that's important for us to think about.
Well, and how you introduce those upgrade opportunities though too is right from the beginning. So one of the things that we say, because our leadership have red tops and black bottoms, our
Right.
store team have blue tops and black bottoms, and so we say in the enrollment process. Now, Mrs. Jones, I'm sure you've seen the red tops and the blue tops out on the floor, right?
Right.
Yes, and I just want you to know that those programs are programs that have to be earned. They're not just given. And at some point, we're going to, give Johnny that opportunity and you guys that opportunity for him to earn it and then make that decision on whether they're going to go to black belt leadership and or, our storm team. So, but when we get a little bit closer to that, we'll let you know.
Yeah, and I think that I don't want to say urgency sell, right? Urgency to make it, but specialty, like an invitation type process. When Johnny is ready, we will let you know. Then you could go into our upgrade program, which you'll probably have seen the people in their red uniforms and so on and so forth throughout our school. Those are all members in that prestigious elite type program that we do. Not to say our other programs aren't amazing and elite as well, but this is just for those people that want to take their training to the next level. They want to step up a bit. And you should plant the seed from day number one that, maybe for the first year you're in a basic program, but after like 12 months, if you're going to stay, you should definitely move yourself up to that Black Belt Club program. You got to plant that seed. So, because some people will just hide in the shadows forever. They'll just stay in that basic program because they're not looking to go into that next one. But we have to build that mindset, that culture, that this is where people progress to. It's not like
Right.
you're not going to stay in kindergarten forever or first grade. You're going to second grade unless you're failing, right? Like, so that's the natural progression. What's next? That's our leadership team. What's next? That's our instructor training, and so on. You have to have that built into the mindset.
Yeah, and that's why we tell them that the red tops and black bottoms, they're earned, and we also what I didn't mention is we let them know that depending on the program, that's a 3 to 5 year program.
Yeah.
So like we let them know that there's going to be a bigger commitment coming down the road.
Yeah, and you see, I won't get into real detail, but I started a black belt club many, many, many years ago. Again, if I could, I wouldn't have called it Black Belt Club. Like if I could go back in time, I would have changed the name on it because people associated Black Belt Club with people who are going to be or close to or gonna get to black belt. So I would have called it, and like all my coaching clients, they call their program this disciple program, elite training, the elite warrior experience, or whatever it is, right? That it takes away that belt level commitment because some people just dismiss it. Oh yeah, we're not ready. We're nowhere near black belt yet, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But I also started my program where I was lazy. Like I wanted to not build work into my program. So I do my Black Belt Club is only one time a month, the last Monday of every month, and it's for 1 hour. They get a custom uniform, they get a custom patch, and they get 3 seminars a year with world-renowned teachers or guest instructors that I bring in, and they get 10% off on their gear. So I have very minimal 15 hours of work extra for that upgrade price, but it creates this culture. I have about 65% of my enrollment is now in our Black Belt Club program.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, well, closing, like with regards to closing the sale, if you will. I don't know what your approach is. I'm very nonchalant. I do it without any type of pressure, but I've also built a lot of things into it. And what I mean by that is, again, I have a phone call with them on Fridays. So anybody that's in the trial, I have a phone call on Friday, talk with them about the program. By that time, usually have watched all the videos by that time because they're not very long videos. And, tell me a little bit about Johnny, why you think martial arts might be good for him. We talk about it. when you were at the studio, did you see focus being demonstrated? Did you see? Yeah, I did. Okay, what was it about that kid that you saw? Well, I saw the X, Y. Great, great. Not everybody comes in that way, but they all leave with that. Obviously, with like what you had said, with not only our support but also your support at home. We can see those. We can see Johnny's future looking like that. I know you
Right.
got an opportunity to watch the video with how the program is structured, the price, and all those type of things. Out of the options that we have, whether it's the flex pay, the 6 month, or the 12, what do you what are you thinking is best for your family at this moment? And then they tell me. Usually, they all tell me.
So, so can I ask you and go back on your program? So, okay, so someone comes in, they're in a 2 week free. During that, like, is that what you do? 2 weeks free? So during that period of time, within the first week, you give them 3 videos that you present to them. And how do you know that they're watching the videos? Do you just see that, or do you ask them that they're watching?
Yeah, we asked them, did you get a
Okay.
chance to watch the videos? And if they didn't, then, we go over the price video, we go over the prices on the phone with them.
Okay.
Um, you
So
know,
so
and,
the
and
last step is the price video, and if not, you go over the prices with them on the phone. On the phone, you're selling them into the program.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And then, if they were to say to me, yeah, we were really looking at like, I gave one lady was like, yeah, well, I'm really looking at the 6 month. I said, okay, great, not a problem. I'll make a note of that. We're going to meet on Tuesday after so and so's class, and then we can get her enrolled. I'm going to pull her, like, what size shirt does she wear? Okay, great. I already have an idea what size uniform. I'll
Yeah.
have that all pulled and ready. By the way, you do get 50% off a second one if you want a second uniform and a
Love it.
second t-shirt. Would you like me to pull one of those as well? So we ask, and then I have everything ready on Tuesday. She came in and she goes, you know what? I went ahead and decided that I'm going to go ahead and do the 12 month program. I said, great. I said, by the way, some parents like to, save another 20% and just pay it all in full.
Hmm.
So they don't even have the weekly payments. They just prepay it. Is that, something that you would like to do, or do you want to stick with the weekly? She goes, oh, I didn't even know that was an option, because it's not in the
Right.
video as an option.
Right.
Keep
Right.
everything simple. And she goes, you know what? Yeah, I'd like to save 20% and just pay it all in full. So boom, $1,800 later, we're done.
So what would you say your percentage of sales are from your trial program when people are coming and you're doing all the process
Only
that you
about,
just talked about?
only about 55% in total.
So
So
55% sales out of, let's say you brought in 100 members, you would get 50 to 55 students out of that, which is not bad at all.
Well, it's not
And
where we used to be, but I don't know that the atmosphere is what it used to be either. Because
right, but
quite honestly,
55%
my
is pretty
best year
good.
ever was actually 76%.
Wow. Yeah, I remember back in the day where I literally could just talk at light speed and people were signing up. Like, it was really easy. I think that people are much more cautious nowadays. There's way more options and choices for them to make, with not just, everyone always says, which I find to be true to some extent, that other martial arts schools are not your competition. But when you're the only one in town, it's much easier to sign people up compared to when there's another 14 or 15 schools. Like, for example, every time in my Facebook moms group of my town, someone says, hey, I have a 5-year-old that I'm looking to get involved in karate. It's like literally like a vultures are above head swarming. Like, I kind of got annoyed. I have all these schools from outside my town that are on my town page, and they're always like, well, come to us and come to us. And I'm like, look, you're 4 towns over, you're 3 towns over, why don't you, I'm not in your group of your town, stay in your own groups, right? I get annoyed. I'm like, just let the people in this town that are asking for people in this town, let us talk, that kind of thing. But there's so much competition, it's ridiculous. But to 50%, 55%, that's pretty damn good. That's awesome. Do
Well,
you
thank
think you'd improve those numbers if you did everything in person? Is there a way that would help you, or is it just the close rate these days, or is it the close rate of your process?
well, I'm certain it's probably the close rate of my process,
Okay.
but at the way that I've structured it, I really don't necessarily want to be in it every day. So I
I
needed to come up
agree.
with a way that, it was presented very, very well, and then they could make their decision. And really, for me, it's without pressure. You either want to do it or you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I've talked people into doing our program before, and most of those people that I've talked them into doing it did it for a
Yeah.
period of time, maybe liked it, but they quit. And
Yeah.
and it just wasn't to me. It wasn't worth it. I did not feel good about, even though I was confident about the program, I didn't feel good about talking them into it.
A
And
good a good friend of mine, he runs a very like hardcore old school type school. Like he doesn't care. People come in if they're flaky. I'm not sure if we want to commit. He says, okay. He'll close his book up and said, all right, we'll see you soon. Thank you. And he like literally just shuts him off and he's done. But he had a good question for me, and I don't have an answer for him. I don't have the studies, but he said, I wonder how many people that you had to call 20 times to get them to finally come in. And when they finally came in, you had to bend over backwards and jump through hoops to get them to sign up. How many of them actually stay? Or he said, even with the 20 people to finally come in, after all that time and effort, how many of them actually join? So he said, that's a study. And it's interesting. He said, it's a study in wasted time. Like when
yes,
it's like putting effort into much more serious people somehow. Like, so what you had just said, that's interesting.
yeah, and that goes on with your follow-up systems too. I know it's not exactly what we're talking about, but we do have some people that won't even show up to their enrollment conference, and
Right.
we do follow up with them for a little bit, but then we just don't. It's like, yep, they're put on the back burner. They'll still get emails and those type of things, but we really don't market to them very much. I mean, they from time to time they'll get something if there's a back to school special, if there's a Christmas special,
Right.
so maybe 3 or 4 times a year they'll get some information. But other than that, we are not wasting our time
Yeah,
on
and
those.
I've had a handful of people that have been in the back, in the shadows that have come out and said, "Oh, we've been, we really loved your program. It just wasn't the right time for us. Now we're ready." But they're far and few between. So I think the silence and the lack of effort to communicate, even just a communication and say, "I'm not interested," or "It's too expensive," or "We can't commit at this time." It's the ones that ghost you and don't respond and ignore your texts and all that other stuff and so on and so forth that you really. We always say keep nurturing, and I would say do it, but do it through an automation so you don't have to waste a lot of time. But don't put effort into those dead leads, as much effort into those dead leads as you should into the hot leads.
Yeah. So
Yes.
the big picture really is, your take a look at your sales process, reflect on, when we've talked about this before, your school values, how you want it to be presented. Make sure that you train your team on how you want them to enroll,
Right.
and how you want them to upgrade. So you definitely need to spend time, if you haven't, on the type of systems that you want to have in there, and really make sales or leading a natural part
Right.
of your culture. I think, I guess I look at it as, like you had brought up, educating.
Yeah.
So, this for us, our word of the month this month is achievement. Well, it just so happens also this month we have a belt testing. So it
Right.
coincides. But like in my beginner class last night, we were working on, we stripe tested them for their hand and foot techniques like they needed to yesterday. And then their next class on Thursday, their B day, we're going to stripe test them on their forms. And so I split them all up, had them in different groups of two and working on their form that they're doing for this quarter. But I split them up and specifically put different people where they were at with, people they would not have picked, right? And then I said, all right, I want you to practice the form together. I let them practice the form maybe 3 or 4 times together. And I said, everybody stop real quick. Like I said at the beginning of the class, this month, our word of the month is achievement. So here's what I want to ask you. I want to ask you, you as a group, you two together, I want you to discuss with each other in this form together, what is it that you want to achieve? And I'll just give you an example. Do you want to achieve that you guys are both doing it simultaneously? Do you want it to achieve that you have power? Do you want to achieve that, your kicks are higher?
Right.
Discuss it. And I'm going to give you 60 seconds to talk about it. And then I want you to, tell me what it is. Because then I'm going to let you practice it. And then you're going to demonstrate that towards the end of class so we can see if you did achieve what you set out to do. So
Right.
I did everybody in that fashion. And then I said, okay, great. Let's work on it. And then while they were doing that, I went over to the parents and I said, parents, do you see what I'm doing? And the parents are like, yeah. I said, what is it that you are seeing that I'm doing? And
Right.
it was beautiful because I saw different parents come up with different things on what I was doing. And I, of course, reiterate, yes, yep, I'm doing that. Yeah, certainly this. Yes, that type of thing. And then I was able to add on, but this is also what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. So then they were done. I said, all right, remind me what it is that you want to achieve. Okay, boom, show us. I asked the other students, do you think they achieved what they set out to do? Yes, bam. We went through every single group. I said, parents, do you think that your child achieved what they set out to do today? Yes, sir. Great. Boom, sent them on their way. We even have like an I am statement that we use for the word achievement. We all did that because it has hand motions and stuff.
Yeah.
We all did that, bowed out, and they left. But I bring all that up because the parents, they saw the bigger picture. I invited
Yeah.
them into that bigger picture of what I wanted their kids to achieve and what they want their kids to achieve, and they all
Yeah.
saw it. Does that make sense?
It totally does. So what you're saying is, the process of signing them up and selling them or placing them, whatever we're doing to put them in our program, it should totally reflect your school values and how you do things in your school. Because I hate to say it, right? But what is it? It's like you need to dumb things down, right? And when I say dumb thing down, I think maybe that's not the right word because it's not dumbing it down. It's just kind of simplifying it. Maybe that's better. Simplifying it so people could understand. And like you said before, what was it? You're in a 2-word, 3-picture society, you said? Was that correct?
We're in a 2-word, 3-picture society now.
Yeah. And by the way, we laugh, my family and I laugh, my daughter and my wife and I laugh, mostly my daughter and I laugh because she was a part of my dojo. And I'll say, tomorrow classes are canceled. We have a special program going on. So there are no capital NO regular classes. It's only for Black Belt Club members. Inevitably, I'll get 8 or 10 text messages. Is this message for us? We don't have classes for the Little Warriors and the Mighty Warriors? And I'm like, I want to go right back and say, what is wrong with you? Do you not listen or read? But for them, they're seeing it from a different perspective, right? They're not actually hearing what I'm saying pertaining to them. They're thinking that this message might have gone out to everyone else, but not for them. So, and now I've been relying on Chat GPT. I say, make this super clear and write this message that I just wrote. I wrote it out before I hit send. I put it in chat and then I hit send, go, and it writes me a message. And I go like, that makes way more sense the way the Chat GPT wrote it than the way I had it, right? So it's important for us to make sure that we clearly reflect our goals and our school values and what we do. And that's important because look, if you're not a competition school and you don't compete, but people are looking to compete, then you're not the school for them. Or you do compete and they don't want to compete, but they are not going to compete. Now you're going to have a point of contention between you and the student. Then you have to clearly spell out your goals. Or the value system of parents who are hands off. I pay the check and I bring them to class and that's all I do. Don't expect me to do anything else. I'm too busy and I have no desire whatsoever. Then that might not be the school for them. Your school might not be the school for them. So you have to be clear in expressing. And your quote, Duane, I have it right on my wall, clear as kind, right? That's your quote that you shared with me. I have a wall of quotes right there. Every time you throw out a quote or someone else we interview, I take their quote and I put it on the wall. So you want to also, a thing that we haven't really talked about quickly is you need to make sure that your staff is trained as mini yous. Like they're just like you. They say what you want. They can do it in their own way, but they have to follow the path that you take. They can't skip something because they think that it's not important. They can't not mention something because they feel like it's a waste. They have to follow your scripts and your process fully so everyone is indoctrinated the same way in your school.
Yeah, and look, if you don't want to use a script, then create a framework for them to
Right.
follow, so they can use their own voice, but the message is still getting across because these are the main points that need to be hit. Does that make sense?
It does, and I love how you just took the word selling out of it or script out of it, and you put another word, framework,
Right.
right? Like sometimes we have certain stigmas about certain things, right? So that was great, though. It should be a process, right? Just a framework. I don't know. There are certain, like I've done some acting, and there were certain directors that if you didn't say the words exactly as the script, they would get rid of you. I was in a movie called WatchUsDie.com, and I only had like one line. I'm like, put up your hands, Miss Sterling, put up your hands. I'm a cop, and I got a gun pointed at her. And I every time they said cut, run it again, I go, put those hands in the air, Mrs. Sterling. And the Chinese director was like, that's not it. Then finally I did it like 4 times differently. And he told the director, get rid of him. Thank God the director was my friend. So he said, no, 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 we'll get it. And the reason why they want you to do it exactly the same in script, because every time they cut a different angle, they have to have the same thing over and over again from different angles. So you're not different words, different lines, and you have to splice it. So it's the same with scripting or framework or layout in your school and how you do things. You got to
Well,
make sales a natural part of your culture. You have to teach your staff and you have to learn it yourself.
you do. So listen, if you ever felt weird about selling, your martial arts programs, hopefully today with this podcast, it gave you a new perspective and some, some few practical tools to use as well.
Yeah. And if you got value, you've learned something from this episode, don't forget, subscribe to us, leave a review if you can on iTunes or Spotify or on our Facebook page, and share our podcast with others. We get a lot of people that we've never met before. In fact, I just started coaching with a new client. And we start officially this coming Monday, who's been listening to our podcast and literally running his school by learning from the podcast. Like, so he's been, that's a great idea, I'm going to put that in my school. He said to me, he goes, I felt that now is the time to get it firsthand, right? So if you can share it with another school or other schools, or post it online, or share it in your groups that you're in, give it to people who need to hear this.
Agreed. So until next time, keep showing up, keep leading, and keep building your school, and live the life that you are meant to, because you deserve it, but also your students do. Allie, have a great day, sir.
Awesome, dude. Have a great day. Take care, everybody.
Now that's a wrap. Another episode of Martial Arts School Owner Talk is in the vast library. We appreciate you tuning in and being part of this incredible community. A huge thank you to everyone who makes this podcast possible, including our sponsors, such as EliteInsights.com, your go-to high-performing website company for martial arts schools, LeadHunterMedia.com, your expert in digital media and content creation for martial arts schools, AddHealthCoaching.com, helping school owners unlock a powerful revenue stream by providing the tools and framework to become a health coach. Thanks again for joining us. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share our show with other school owners and friends. See you on the next episode.